reduce arbitrage opportunities across state markets. The policy underscores federal government's commitment to making CNG a central part of Nigeria's energy mix. The presidency, in collaboration with the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, has commenced a 3-day executive training program in Lagos aimed at strengthening fiscal governance and accountability in Nigeria's public sector. Organized in partnership with the Africa Development Studies Center, ADSC, the bring together key sectors from ministries, departments, and agencies to explore how digital innovation can improve transparency, efficiency, and fiscal discipline. Delivering the opening address, the executive chairman of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Victor Morocco, ESQ, represented by the special advisor to the executive chairman, Dr. Chris Waduka, stressed the urgency of adopting new tools for fiscal management.
Profound pleasure and great sense of urgency that I welcome you all to this pivotal executive training program. We are gathered here today with a shared mission, and that mission is to transform the management of our nation's resources. This program, a strategic collaboration between the Fiscal Responsibility Commission and the Africa Development Studies Center, ADSC, is more than just a training session. It is a command center for equipping our fiscal frontline with the digital tools needed to win the battle for transparency, accountability, and economic sustainability. So we've identified us here as the fiscal front line. The theme, leveraging digital innovation for enhanced fiscal governance and accountability in the public sector, is not merely an academic topic. It is a critical mandate for our time and the very core of our existence as a commission established by the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007.
Representatives at the event described the training as a command center for equipping our fiscal frontline with the digital tools needed to win the battle for transparency, accountability, and economic sustainability. The National Board for Technology Incubation has expressed appreciation to Governor Ahmed Usman Ododo of Kogi State for approving sponsorship of the state's finalists to the Next Gen Innovation Challenge 2025. The international event will take place at Hilton London Paddington on the 9th of October, with Nigerian youths set to showcase their creativity in technology, enterprise, and innovation. Director General of the board, Dr. Kazim Kolawole Raji, commended the government's swift and affirmative response, describing it as a clear demonstration of its visionary leadership and commitment to youth empowerment. He noted that the governor's support highlights confidence in the capacity of Nigerian youths to compete globally and contribute to national economic transformation through technology. The board also invited Governor Ododo to visit its headquarters this week to explore deeper collaboration on advancing homegrown innovation. His intervention, the agency stressed, not only positions Kogi State as a driver of youth-led technological development, but also strengthens Nigeria's innovation ecosystem for sustainable growth. And now, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will participate in the United Nations General Assembly later this month, his spokesperson, Kang Jong-yong, announced on Tuesday. During his visit to New York, President Lee is also scheduled to preside over a United Nations Security Council meeting, highlighting South Korea's growing diplomatic role on the global stage. His attendance comes at a critical moment for international security discussions, with pressing issues such as regional conflicts, nuclear threats, and global cooperation expected to dominate deliberations. The visit underscores South Korea's commitment to multilateralism and its increasing engagement in shaping international policy. By leading the Security Council meeting, President Lee will have the opportunity to spotlight his country's perspectives on peace and security, while strengthening South Korea's standing within the international community. This marks one of President Lee's most significant foreign policy engagements since assuming office, reinforcing Seoul's active role in global diplomacy. China on Tuesday called on Pakistan to strengthen security measures for its citizens, following repeated militant attacks targeting Chinese workers involved in multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects. Pakistan has long been a key hub for President Xi Jinping's flagship Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), hosting major investments under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. However, growing security concerns have cast a shadow over these projects, with Chinese engineers and workers frequently coming under attack from insurgent groups. Beijing's demand underscores the strain such incidents have placed on its close ties with Islamabad. While Pakistan has pledged to protect Chinese nationals, militants continue to exploit security gaps, raising questions about the sustainability of ongoing projects. Analysts note that without stronger protective measures, both the progress of BRI projects and Pakistan's economic partnership with China could face further disruption. The appeal signals China's urgency in ensuring that its strategic and financial commitments in the region are not derailed by persistent threats. Syria has restarted crude oil export for the first time in 14 years, sending 600,000 barrels of heavy crude from Tartus port to trading company B Serve Energy. The shipment loaded onto the Nissos Christiana tanker marks a major step in the country's efforts to revive its economy following the end of the long civil war and the removal of President Bashar al-Assad. Before the war, Syria produced about 380,000 barrels per day, but conflict, sanctions, and damaged infrastructure crippled production and exports. The new administration, which came into power after Assad's ouster, has moved quickly to rebuild energy ties, supported by the lifting of United States sanctions in June that had long blocked trade. Syria has also signed an $800 million agreement with DP World to develop and operate a new multi-purpose terminal at Tartus, signaling a broader push to attract investment into oil, gas, and infrastructure. Analysts say the renewed oil exports could provide crucial revenue for economic recovery if political stability is maintained. India is making moves to expand its pharmaceutical exports into Russia, Brazil, and the Netherlands as part of a wider plan to reduce its reliance on the United States market. The U.S. currently accounts for more than one-third of India's pharmaceutical exports, with sales climbing to $10.5 billion in fiscal 2025, mostly from affordable generic medicines. However, uncertainties over American tariff policies have driven India to explore new growth destinations, according to government and industry data. Brazil, Russia, and the Netherlands already contribute more than $1.9 billion to India's pharmaceutical export earnings. Officials say that with the current production capacity, export to these regions can grow by at least 20%. Still, the U.S. market remains the backbone of India's drug export trade, and new destinations are seen as additional outlets rather than full substitutes. The Indian government is also in talks with pharmaceutical groups to ease regulatory hurdles in these emerging markets. A major push is expected at the upcoming International Pharmaceutical Exhibition in New Delhi, where regulatory agencies and industry leaders will meet to discuss market access. India expects these efforts to support a long-term strategy of diversification and help protect the sector from future trade risks. Britain's 30-year borrowing costs surged to their highest level since 1998, with sterling falling by more than 1% against the United States dollar on Tuesday. The sharp sell-off in government bonds, known as gilts, came amid wider global bond market weakness. But analysts warn that the investor concern about the United Kingdom's strained fiscal outlook is amplifying pressure on its assets. The downturn followed a cabinet reshuffle by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, including the appointment of former Bank of England Deputy Governor Minoche Shafik as Chief Economic Advisor. Investors remain wary over heavy borrowing, slow growth, and the highest inflation rate among G7 economies, all ahead of a difficult budget expected later this year. Market expectations now suggest the Bank of England could hold interest rates at 4% until 2026, dimming hopes of early cuts. Despite concerns, Britain secured a record £14 billion in new 10-year bond after attracting over £140 billion in bids, showing robust demand for shorter-dated debt. However, analysts caution that longer-term fiscal risk, potential tax rises, and weak investor confidence will continue to weigh on sterling and long-dated gilts in the months ahead. The United Kingdom is set to raise a record £14 billion from the sale of its 10-year government gilts, following overwhelming demand from global investors. The issue, due in October 2035, attracted bids worth more than £140 billion, underscoring strong confidence in the country's debt instruments. According to market details, the bonds will price at 8.25 basis points above the equivalent benchmark, carry a coupon rate of 4.75%. Investor giant Vanguard confirmed it had taken a significant stake in the offering, reinforcing the deal's credibility among large institutional players. The record issuance highlights robust investor appetite for United Kingdom debt at a time of heightened global financing needs. It also strengthened the country's fiscal strategy by securing long-term funds at competitive levels, positioning London as a resilient hub for international capital flows. You are still listening to World News on Souk News Television. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Interest in Nigeria's lithium reserves comes as countries worldwide scramble to secure supplies of the mineral, which is essential for powering the green energy revolution. In this special report by Bayo Olaoye, the need to harness this resource for growth and development is examined, with the evolution of electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems. Lithium is a key component in the production of batteries for electric vehicles and renewable energy storage systems, and Nigeria is positioning itself to become a major player in the global lithium market. Nigeria's vast lithium reserves, valued over $34 billion, is no doubt attracting world attention, while lithium factories are springing up in different parts of Nigeria already. The attention of the international mining industry is also focused on lithium because it is critical raw material for the production of solar panels and electric vehicles. Analysts predict that global lithium market could grow robustly over the next decade, driven by the rapid adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy technologies. Data from a Global Future Market Insight showed that the lithium mining industry has emerged as a cornerstone of the clean energy transition, driven by the skyrocketing demand for lithium-ion batteries. The surge in lithium demand is driven largely by the electric vehicles market, which accounted for over 70% of the global lithium consumption in 2024, according to an Iranian-based research firm. With countries such as the United States, China, and members of the European Union pushing for next zero emission by mid-century, lithium demand is expected to escalate further. The federal government, indeed, the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, should intensify efforts geared at renewing and resuscitating the viable lithium industry in the country to its full potential. As Nigeria diversifies its economy into other sectors, the lithium industry offers hope and expectation that this sector would earn more revenue for the country. Nigeria should not just watch with folded arms, but must strive with the political will to develop and strengthen the country's vast lithium reserves.
Welcome back. The Trump family's cryptocurrency venture, World Liberty Financial, faced a turbulent market debut as its World Liberty token, WILFI, dropped by 12% on its first day of public trading. Initially priced above 30 cents, the token slipped to $0.246 by late Monday, reducing its market value to just below $7 billion, according to CoinGecko. Despite the decline, WILFI ranked as the 31st largest cryptocurrency in circulation, with major exchanges such as Binance, OKX, and Bybit listing the token. Early investors who were allowed to sell up to 20% of their holdings view the token's appeal largely in its connection to the former United States President Donald Trump and expectations of long-term value growth under his influence. World Liberty Financial, which has already generated about $500 million for the Trump family, has been met with criticism from lawmakers and ethics experts. Concerns focus on potential conflicts of interest as the president plays a role in shaping cryptocurrency regulation while his family directly benefits from the sector. The White House insists Trump's assets remain in a trust managed by his children with no conflict of interest. The European Union is on course to hit a record military spending of €381 billion in 2025, according to the European Defence Agency, EDA. The surge reflects a 10% increase from the previous year as member states boost defense budgets in response to Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. The push also comes under pressure from US President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly urged NATO allies to shoulder more responsibility for their security. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the increase shows Europe's resolve. Europe is spending record amounts on defense to keep our people safe, and we will not stop there. Of the total sum, almost €130 billion will be invested in procurement of new weaponry and modernization of military systems. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, European governments have sharply expanded defense spending, with several pledging to meet or exceed NATO's 2% GDP target. Analysts say the latest figures underscore Europe's determination to strengthen its military capabilities in a volatile security environment. Romania's coalition government is facing renewed tension as Prime Minister Ilie Boljan scaled back a key element of his fiscal reform package after resistance from within the ruling alliance. The Premier had proposed cutting public administration expenses by at least 10%, but objections from coalition partners forced him to withdraw the measure. Boljan insisted that the original plan did not go far enough, while critics argue the cuts were too severe and politically risky. The disagreement has reopened cracks within the coalition at a time when Romania is under pressure to strengthen public finances and meet spending targets. Analysts warn that the internal discord could delay broader reforms needed to stabilize the economy. With fiscal tightening already proving unpopular, the government now faces the challenge of reconciling its coalition partners while maintaining credibility with markets and international institutions. Global markets opened on a cautious note on Tuesday as the dollar slipped near a 5-week low, while gold soared to a record high of $3,508 per ounce. Investors are positioning ahead of crucial United States labor market data that will determine whether the Federal Reserve moves to cut interest rates in September. The market currently places almost 90% chance on a quarter-point cut, though weak job numbers could push the central bank toward a larger adjustment. The prospect of lower borrowing costs has fueled optimism across equities, with Wall Street hovering near record levels despite muted trading in Asia and Europe. China's major stock indices retreated slightly after sharp rallies, while the euro and sterling weakened against the dollar. Analysts caution that investor sentiment is balancing between hopes of stimulus and fears that the United States economy could slide into a deeper slowdown if the Federal Reserve delays action. Meanwhile, geopolitical and policy uncertainties added to market volatility. Efforts by President Donald Trump to remove a Federal Reserve governor renewed concerns over the central bank's independence, while escalating conflict in Eastern Europe lifted prices. Brent crude rose to $68 a barrel, while United States crude traded near $65. The recently concluded Premier League transfer window has once again underscored the league's unparalleled financial power, establishing new benchmarks for both spending and sales. English clubs collectively generated a record €1.8 billion from player transfers, yet still incurred a substantial net spend of €1.2 billion, the highest figure ever recorded. Liverpool was the top spender with an outlay of €446.5 million. Their strong intent to challenge four top owners. In terms of net spend, however, Arsenal led the way at €257 million. Liverpool followed with a net spend of €218.4 million, with Tottenham and Manchester United also ranking among the league's top investors. Conversely, Bournemouth proved to be the exception, registering a profit of €65.8 million after the sales of key players including Dion Hewson, Milos Kerkez and Ilya Zabarini. The window also saw a series of blockbuster individual transfers. Newcastle United's acquisition of Alexander Isak set a new British record at £125 million, while Florian Wirtz's transfer was valued at £116.5 million. Hugo Ekitike, Benjamin Sesko, and Brian Mbeumo also command significant fees, further illustrating the market's inflation. Super Falcons star Asisat Oshoala is on the verge of completing a high-profile transfer from Bay FC to Saudi Women's League side Al Hilal. Reports from The Athletic confirm that the Nigerian forward arrived in Saudi Arabia on Monday to undergo medicals, signaling the final stages of the deal. Oshoala's absence from Bay FC's squad during their 2-1 defeat to Angel City further fueled speculation about her impending departure. The transfer marks a major career move for the six-time African Women's Footballer of the Year, who only joined Bay FC about 18 months ago. According to the athlete, Al Hilal finalized the agreement with Bay FC before the closure of the transfer window, ensuring the move will be completed in time. This switch not only highlights the growing influence of the Saudi Women's League in attracting global football stars, but also underscores Oshoala's continued relevance as one of Africa's most celebrated female players. Now that's a wrap, but before we go, here's a recap of the top stories. Chairman of FIRS, Zach Adedeji, called for stronger international cooperation and information sharing to mitigate cross-border crime. Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, sounded the alarm over the rising threat of illegal and unregulated fishing in Nigerian waters. President Lee is scheduled to preside over a United Nations Security Council meeting and to highlight South Korea's growing diplomatic role on the global stage. The European Union is on course to hit a record military spending of 381 billion euros in Russia-Ukraine war. 2025 Premier League transfer window breaks record amid £1.2 billion net spendings. Thank you for watching. Please do well to follow us on all our socials at Sook News Television. I am Omobola Sandra. Have a good afternoon.
In 1957, just a greenhorn leaving school and looking for a job, going into broadcasting was something that I dreamt of. But that's only meant going into radio, because my old school, Holy Child College, still on the same site in Obalende, 2 streets away from the old NBC. I still can't forgive whoever changed the name to something else that is being called now FRCN. Because if the BBC remains BBC 100 years after the founding fathers, dreamt of starting television, radio from, all the war years and learning a bit from America. It all started from America. Because we were taught about all this. Every time they took us from school to take part in, schools debates on radio, we just walked across. It's all in Obalende and Ikoyi, Balende/Ikoyi. So I dreamt of doing something along the line. And then one of my teachers left us high and dry. He went to be a newsreader on radio. Marie Tabio, who later became Mrs. Sirikefe. Then we had people like Tung Adedoyin and Eno Tuk. We used to listen to them on radio on the old, you wouldn't know anything about that now, the rediffusion. It was just, a little box in your home, and everybody looked forward to either listening to the 7 o'clock news in the morning or 6 o'clock or 7 in the evening. So that was all really all I had to do with broadcasting. And who was going to take me there was another matter altogether. Who would take you, little 16, 17-year-old girl, into broadcasting? But one had been bitten by the bug then. So, and only God knows where whatever dream you had was going to lead to. We read poetry, we did radio show, stage shows in school. Catholic schools were very good for that. And my old school, just celebrating 150 years of its existence, just down the road from here on Broad Street. The nuns, they were all white nuns. No Nigerian nuns at the time that we were growing up. So all the dream they had, this kind of dream that we have now, going to England, but they were coming here to teach us. So I had learnt a lot of poetry, I had taken part in Festival of Arts, and I had gone to, the biggest hall we had then was at King's College, which is also down the road. Means of transportation was your SS foot. No BRT, no bicycles or whatever. So we did it all just walking around and learning from our teachers. And of course, our mentors were the nuns, like I said. So in my wildest dream, there was no way that I was thinking of going into anything like broadcasting. That is going back to answer your question. But they had a lot of plans for the girl child. And not along the religious lines now, but actually they came to actually engender this whole idea of pushing the girl child forward. And not just me, a lot of us, people like Mrs. Francesca Emanuel, they also went through the whole gamut of all this dream that I'm talking about. Television itself was brand new in the world. I have to talk about radio because that was what I knew as a child. But television, when it started, we didn't even know. Maybe in America, and then it went to Australia, and then to France. No. France came after Nigeria. You wouldn't believe that, would you? That we were number 6. America, Britain, Germany, Australia, one other country, and coming now home to Nigeria, where you cannot help but give a lot of credit to the dreams of people like late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and one of his ministers then, Chief Anthony Enahoro. So that's how I believe this whole package was placed on their laps and sold to Nigeria, to the Western Nigeria government. On the radar were lots of other people like me who had dreams about becoming Miss Nigeria. So maybe that will now give you a little background about how I took part in the Miss Nigeria pageant, Western Nigeria, and I became Miss Western Nigeria. Somebody must have fine-tuned some little knots somewhere and said, okay, you probably might be able to deliver. Because you are being interviewed when you go before the panel of judges, and somebody must have said, okay, that's a good material, you can come and take part in this. Before then, we had other people, Anike Agbaje Williams, Poliola Sokwe, who were working on radio. My dream was to work in radio, but then I missed that. And I was nursing, that dream of still going to radio. Never knew what television was all about. So maybe that answers your question, I'm not sure. But I took part in the Miss Western Nigeria pageant and I won. Took part in the Miss Nigeria contest and came second. So that meant that I didn't win. And if one of the, maybe the prize was to go on TV, it wasn't even there. It wasn't written into the, program that whoever did this, but the person was going to go to England. And so Helena Yemeluna, who won that contest, went to London and fulfilled her own dream. But I was still biting my nails, waiting for when I'll be able to get a job. There were other things that girls could do. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be an assistant, a dental assistant. All those were things that young ladies, can, fulfill their dreams along those lines. They're still there. You still have young ladies. Mrs. Muritala Mohammed, the first time I met her, she was a dental assistant. Little did we know that her husband was going to be the head of state and she would be first. So you see, lots of things were there for the young girl who wanted to learn, who had the talent, and who wanted to perform, and who wanted to work hard. But now I don't know if girls want to work hard. All they want is, the table to be set, and then they come and, partake of whatever is there. It wasn't too difficult at the time that I was picked as one of the people to come and appear on WNTV. The audition was actually carried out before my time. I I got involved in so many other things, trying to get a job, something to secure, something, to alleviate poverty. There was not too much poverty in Nigeria at the time because people could still make a living for themselves and, get by in society. But I was lucky that I had an aunt who was a nurse in the hospital in Ibadan, UCH in Ibadan. And she was married to an Englishman, and the man's friend happened to have been the man, Mr. Mathers, who was brought as one of the technical partners to WNTV. So we met at a dinner party, and just as you and I are chatting, I was only 18 plus. I was 17 when I took part in the pageant. So by this time I was growing up, and I thought I was a big girl. So I opened my mouth and I said a few things. And the man looked at me and said, "How come you are not speaking with a Nigerian accent?" And I didn't know what he meant because we were taught at St. Mary's to deliver whatever lines we were given to deliver. The Festival of Arts, I came second after an English boy from Corona School. And I was given a beating for coming second. Not because I didn't perform well, but because I forgot to curtsy. And one of the judges, I think, who was then Mrs. Abayomi, Lady Abayomi, said that I delivered my lines very well. If I were the Lord of Tartary, I would do this and that and the other. So I came second. And when I got back to the school, the nun, Sister Marieta, said, "You were not paying attention." So whatever you do in life, you have to be consistent. You have to perform well. The way we're trying to do now, the way we're trying to project your voice and whatever it is you have to offer with a lot of humility, not, trying to show off or to project your own image, but whatever message you have to deliver, you have to make sure that it is well delivered. The following year, St. Mary's Convent School, which is my old school, which is 150 years old in existence, went to the same King's College Hall, and we beat a lot of secondary schools. We came first. Pied Piper of Hamelin. Have you ever heard of that poetry? Pied Piper of Hamelin was about someone who wanted to get rid of all the rats in Europe. And all he did was to play the pipe. So that is what we were more or less doing. That's what you and I have felt. Being a Pied Piper, trying to get off all the ills in society. That's the main job of a broadcaster. There's so many things happening in the country, and it's only TV and radio that binds the country together. If the country falls apart tomorrow, you will rely on someone from radio or from television to make the announcement, to introduce the head of state who has just won the election or the one who has just taken over. It's a huge responsibility. At that age, at 19, we had to introduce people like Chief Obafemi Awolowo on TV. We had to introduce people like Akintola, Oladoke Akintola, as the premier. And when everything broke down and it all went into smithereens, they brought in Chief Majekodumi as the administrator of the Western region. All this happening before our eyes. There were no other stations in the country except WNTV. And we were there, so we learned quite a lot. In fact, I believe that the whole country revolves around broadcasting. And if you are part of that organization, how would you feel at my age, at 80-something? As young people, perhaps you don't know all this history that I'm telling you about. It's a long, long story. But when you sit down, you have to put it all into perspective. You see that, well, some people are actually meant to be in different positions. Some people are meant to be doctors. Some people are meant to be nurses. But those of us that are in broadcasting, it's a huge responsibility. It's a passion. Something. Sometimes you don't even know how you got there in the first place. Or somebody may have discovered you. It's like being in Hollywood in those days. Someone has to develop, you have the talent, the latent talent, and then somebody will discover you. So that's how I was discovered by Mr. Mathers at a dinner. I was put in that place because I had won the Miss Western Nigeria contest. If I hadn't done that, I probably would be somewhere in the kitchen washing plates, washing all the dishes. So there you are, if that answers your question. Well, there's no one that actually picks someone and puts you plonk without, I mean, of course, if you don't have any experience on the job, you have no business being there in the first place. But if I had taken part in 5.5 of Hamelin towns in Brunswick, I was only 13. By famous Hanover City, I was speaking like an English person. When I was only a Nigerian, little girl being nurtured, by my mother, who was a seamstress. How would you ever get there? But you already have that background, that solid background on the rock, as it were. So, by the time I was ready to go on TV, I had learnt from all the other, people that I mentioned their names earlier, like Anike Agbaje Williams. And I wouldn't say it was easy, because you always have that, butterfly fluttering in front of the camera or wherever. I think I took to television like I was meant to be there, with all humility. If I had been groomed by all these nuns that I have mentioned their names, they came to Nigeria to serve the people. They were not earning salaries, To become a nun, you have to take the oath of obedience, chastity, poverty, and all that. So you're not earning a salary. But whoever is there now is thinking of how much money he's going to get from whatever take comes from here, there, and yonder. So they taught us well. And nobody said you're going to go and appear on TV or you're going to be on radio. But just do what you're meant to do properly, with a lot of sense of responsibility and diligence. And that stands at the back of your mind. That goes everywhere with you, wherever you go in life. Even when I was nursing a sick child, my late son was a sickler. And I was meant to take part in Verdict 79 with my colleagues Kerry Ahmed and Adamu Aogi. They all came with me to the hospital, which is just next door here. And then we came back and mounted the podium and continued our business as if nothing was happening. He didn't die at the time, of course, but the job must go on. That is always there at the back of your mind. So my first night, I wouldn't say that I didn't have any jitters, that I was not nervous. But I was able to deliver, and I think that was the staying power. That was what kept me going, because other people came on board. I was not the only one. All the members of the board had their own, little nephews and nieces that they wanted to project on TV. They all came and they couldn't make it. But Anike and I kept going. And if you gave me a script now, I think I would try and... We didn't have too many, what do you call it then, teleprompters. Well, I was very good at, I had a photographic memory. So I was able to get hold of the script, and in less than 60 seconds, I'll be able to deliver it straight to the camera. That was one of the assets that I had also, which was God's gift. It's not by own minds or whatever you think you have. You have the talent, of course, but also there has to be some other little bits of gifts that will help you to project the image of a professional. A lot of controversy. There is hardly any TV, radio, movie personality that can scale through that without any, because people are watching, people are trying to find their own little, bits of criticism here, there, and yonder. You can't be a goodie, 2 shoots without, any, how shall I say it, problem here, there, and yonder. So everybody has their own way of looking at people. People say, well, what has she got to do? She went to take part in Miss Western Nigeria the other day. So what's the big deal about her? And then somebody will still add their own salt and pepper here and there. But I was lucky that I was being nurtured by someone like T.O.S. Benson, who was then our Minister for Information. And he felt that, everything should not stop here. There were things happening in America. He made sure that my name was there. I was at the inauguration of President Lyndon Johnson. And we commanded a lot of attention there, myself and my colleague who came from Lagos, the station in Lagos. And for the president to notice that there were 2 black people sitting behind him at his inaugural ball, I think it was very overwhelming for me because not many black people had invitation to that event. But Charity Adadevo and I were there, and he stood up and shook our hands where we were sitting behind, 3 rows behind the president. Then Kennedy had died, and we were still nursing, we were still feeling very hot about, the loss of Kennedy. And here was the new president coming up. We were not particularly keen on being welcomed by him. But then, things like that happen to you, and it makes headline news. 2 black people, they didn't even say Nigerians. They thought we were from Ghana because some journalists came around and said, how is your man Nkrumah? And we said, no, our own Prime Minister is Tafawa Balewa. They never heard of him then. But then they had to go and carry out their own study and find out who Tafawa Balewa was. And of course, the whole country was very proud of us that we went and actually stole the show at the inauguration of President Lyndon Johnson. So many other things happened. When I came to London, the British Information Office, they were trying to look for someone to host their program. That just happened to be around, so they picked me to host their program. But you don't ad-lib on any of those stations. Everything is written out. The questions, even your answer will be written. You can change it around a little bit, but they make sure that you said the right thing at the right time. So that was how we were able to gain attention. German television also invited us because they were interested in Nigeria. See how the German Chancellor came to Nigeria. That was what happened at the time. In 1963, we had just gained, we had just become a then from being an independent station in 1960. By 1963, we then became a republic. And we were chosen to go and appear on German television in Berlin. And they wanted a little bit of culture. So Benson had his own band. So we were chosen to go and represent Nigeria then. Nobody knew who the ambassador was, but they wanted to know who was presenting something on TV. So that's how important television has been. And that, in fact, we were the first television in the whole of Africa. The very first station, WNTV, that was a call signal. WNTV, first in Africa. There's nothing like that now. Nobody wants to know whether you are first or second. But the station that is being run in Nigeria, I think, has the largest number of stations than any other country in Africa. We have about 21 stations, and now it's still, still counting. And yours is coming on board, and so many others. I think next to America, Nigeria should have been the best country for television broadcasting in the whole world. There's not so many countries in the world that has as many stations as Nigeria. We only have to put our heads together. We only have to find joy in whatever we're doing. Sometimes when it's raining, people say, oh, it's raining, and they feel very bad about the rain. But if you look closely, behind that rain, there will be sunshine, there will be something else coming on. You see some silver clouds coming during the rain, but Nigerians don't have the patience to wait for that kind of thing. That's what television teaches you. If you're in the studio, you don't know what's happening outside. You just get on with the job. That's what we were taught. We were taught not by Nigerians. Even when we started, we couldn't go on air and ad-lib. There was always someone there, Mr. Blackledge, to write the script. And if you can commit that to memory and deliver it, they're home and dry. It's not everyone that has the gift, not everyone that has the talent. It's God-given. And if you listen as a child at 17, 18, 19, at my own age, I learned from school, and I was able to impart this into the job. So within a few months, we got double promotion, all of us, because we were doing very well. Anika Agbadi was excellent. Olasope was superb. And so many other people reading the news. We were the first female to read the news. Women were not allowed to read the news. Nigeria started it. BBC wouldn't allow a woman to pick up a script and read the news. But we were already there. So that's how we were able to gain this global attention that you mentioned. It's not easy. It's not easy. Like I said, when we were taught not by Nigerians. But somebody came along the line and said, we don't have to speak like English people. You can just carry on and use your own parochial background. If you are a Robo man, you can speak English the way you like. That was his own idea. Because he didn't believe in us doing all this la-di-da and trying to, say things the proper way. But that watered down the standards a bit. Because then everybody, maybe he had a relation who wanted to appear on TV, and he wasn't allowed to because he couldn't speak like Ikenanda Goba or Bodelalade and things like that, or Friday Fude or Mike Nahuru. So somebody must have gone to him and said, because he doesn't speak like any of those people who were taught by, foreign teachers, people who had learned, people who knew what a DJ, we had a Bible then, that you had to pronounce your words correctly. So he came and said, now that I'm DG, I'm not going to tolerate all this, your English way of speaking. And some other people, of course, that watered down the standards. That's not our own making. We were still ready to continue the way we were doing, but then they pushed us to the background. But there were others who were able to perform well. Ruth Benamesia, Opia, Sienna Weber, and of course Bimbo Oloyede, who was born in England. If you already employed those people to deliver the goods and to present your programs, you're not going to sack all of them because they speak with English accent. I don't see how that can be an offense. You cannot be, guilty of speaking English well, like the English people. But they then brought out other people. And you had the head of presentation. I became head of the presentation after I came under Buba. And you're trying to prepare your roster. You wanted to put such people online to read the network news. Then they say, okay, bring somebody who can speak like the Radididu and do a little bit of a on the side. It's part of our culture. So that is what is happening to TV broadcasting in Nigeria. It's all very interesting. So, this cultural milieu and bringing, a touch of Nigeria. Nigeria is doing well in that aspect in the music world. I think we're leading. Some of us who grew up on Handel's Messiah and Mozart, we have to sort of put our hands behind our back now and watch, all the way things have turned around, and Nigerian music is doing well. Afrobeat is reigning everywhere in the world. So really you can't find faults with that. So when they watch a bit of Fela and his children and all his grandchildren doing well, then listen to the channels on TV, you have to take what you get from there as well. If somebody can wake up one day and say, why should your station be called the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation? I say it should now be Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Tongue twisting. Takes a long time to come to terms with. If everyone wake up in the morning and say, this is Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, you have the call signal. Da 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 da. This is the Nigerian Broadcasting whatever. How are you going to put that, into context with the new one? First of all, when you wake up, you don't know whether you are even coming out of the right side of your bed or not. You are going to have to face your audience and say, we are no more the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. We are now Federal whatever, which you don't even know where the man, who came up with the idea. He didn't even consult you, didn't even put it to test. If the British corporation, they are going to change from BBC after 100 years, they will ask the whole nation, they will say, where are we going to take this from? They will ask everybody, they will do a census, they will do all kinds of things, carry out all kinds of tests to see whether people will accept it from them. No. Nigerians are very hard and cut and dry. This is the way I want it. I'm the head of state, so I can change everything now and, all of you can start marching forward and march back again. Soldier go, soldier come. I think Fela would have been a good head of state for Nigeria because he would have got some people marching the right way. So, I think that is what has happened to this country. But we will still settle down. The soldiers that have been marching since, they will do attention one day. And then we'll be able to sort ourselves out gradually. I think we're going through the right process now. People are beginning to find their own feet. If things go around, price of goods go up, Nigerians will find a way to come to terms with that. When we were growing up, everything was done. We won't say according to the colonial rules and regulations, but at least there were standards that were set down for you and things that you had to toe the line. This is the proper way to do things. But if somebody says, no, let's turn around and turn it upside down. First stack. It's the only thing that has happened to the whole world from Nigeria that shook the whole world. That brought everybody attention. see what Africa has to offer the whole world. It happened here on this soil in Nigeria. I was a member of the ceremonial committee. I remember the opening ceremony. There were about 15 heads of state. We've never had anything like that since then. That is what we should ask ourselves. Every head of state that takes over from Nigeria should find out again. It's not from broadcasting that you can get the answer. You can get the answer from technocrats who had worked in all those areas. What happened? How come it couldn't happen again? It's like Armageddon. Every country was represented. Every culture was represented. Miriam Akiva was watching us and called us at the station one day and said, even the way we linked programs, they couldn't expect that it could be happening in Nigeria. We received phone calls. People were sending us bottles of champagne on the air. The links. Bimbo Oloyede was there with me. I was at the opening ceremony. I was yanked from there to come back to the station. From, interacting with the head of state or with our head of state at the time to come and man the station because what was phenomenal. How come we've not been able to do it? 77 years, how long ago was that? I was only 37 years old then. I'm going on 90 now. It hasn't happened again. We should examine that. Even the head of state that was there is still alive. Let's ask him again. Let us put him down and say, Oga, please explain to us what happened. Some people came up with a theory that the symbol that was used was fetish, that is what has happened and Nigeria has turned upside down. If that is acceptable, it may be superstitious in your eyes, but let us find out. Let's not call the Babalawo. Is it bad that it is a Nigerian that carved this image? And it is making news outside the world. Now you say, no, it is not good that Nigeria should be able to project an image that would attract the whole world, something that will bring everybody on their knees. After the first attack, we were still recovering, just batting in the glory of first attack. What's this artist, the blind one, who was not part of it, who didn't believe in me, came and had his own first attack, all on his own, from America. Stevie Wonder, he came with his own team. We had to mount all the cameras back in the studio for him. He had his own 7-day festival here in Nigeria. What prompted him to do that? Other people came. They wanted to know what was happening in Nigeria. What has happened? We couldn't have another festival since then.
What do you think went wrong? Why did it?
Nothing went wrong. Everything went so well that people wanted to destroy our own Nigerian people, wanted to destroy the glory that's this whole thing that's emanated from it. It hit the whole world. People are asking, when you go to Britain, you say, what happened? Why aren't you having? I had a friend who was head of the, he was from the British Guyana, a black guy. He was friends with everybody. He knew all Nigerians. Said, what happened? Why are we going to have another festa? Professor Ian Hall, he keeps asking me. Even if we can't have it because it was very expensive anyway, Nigeria had all the money. Even though we had a coup after, it was first of all the brainchild of Gawan. And then Muritala came on board. Muritala was killed, but in spite of that, they couldn't kill that dream of having a festac in Nigeria. If we are able to bring out all those programs again, I think we'll be able to answer those questions. I'm still alive. There are a lot of people who will still want to know the answer to that. It's a very, very brilliant question that you have asked. I think if it was another country, they'll set up an inquiry and say, what happened? Can we resuscitate this whole dream. Some of the tapes that we had then in WNTV, some people put them in one place and set fire to them. Because they felt, maybe somebody in their religious organization said, you are the one projecting all these things, so Nigerians are bringing idols around. Who gave them the idea to make the idol? It's God now. It's from God. Whatever thing you were able to put together. The Bible was put together because God loved the world so much, and He wanted us to learn about, things that had gone out from the time of Adam and Eve. God loved the whole world and created Muhammad and said, put people together and let them say Allah Akbar every day, morning, noon, night. God created so many wonderful things for us, so many images that we can imbibe from, so many things that we can learn from. People want to come and learn about our country. Instead, we say, we want our sculptures back. What are you going to do with them? You don't have a museum where you're going to put them to make them thrive and people come here to Nigeria. It's a good idea for them to come, but if they learn about your country, what your people have done over the past 2,000 years. 2,000 years of Nigeria image was put together by the BBC. Nigeria went and tore it up in shreds. He tore it up. He said, what are you doing with that? What you call bad belly. I don't know if anybody sang a song with that title. If we maybe start from there and say, what do you do with your own bad belly? Some people, National Stadium. There is no theatre in England, in London, that I know that I've gone to watch plays and things that have not been in existence for over 500 years. So many studios. We have one big one, the dream of Nigerians. And now we want to go and do banking there. We want to go and do trade. It's supposed to be for culture, for our own culture. Lagos State will be dragging federal government by the neck and say, no, we own the theatre now, and we want somebody to come and do something there. If we can only put all these things behind us, the evil that people have done in the past, people like Julius Caesar, when they were writing all those, when Shakespeare was writing all those things, things like that have happened in the past. We should examine them. Get people like Wale Soyinka to sit down and rewrite the whole history again. If they ask me questions like you're asking me now, I will be there to answer. Because I saw it all unfold before my eyes. The image of Nigeria will come tops. All the stations in Nigeria should get involved and do stories on this question that you've asked me. Very salient question, and I love it so much. That might be able to revive the image of this country and let us know where we are heading, in what direction, and bring us back to really the point of salvation. Well, I haven't seen it. I must have mentioned it somewhere, I think on one of the channels. When was trying to build a scandal around it, and I said, and I tried to put the record straight, that wasn't really what happened. And that, it was from, I think it was from a book that was written by one of the wives that said that I was party to his breakdown of their marriage. And I was trying to put the record straight that that wasn't really the true picture. I with due respect, I have to, bow wherever I come in the presence of a president of this nation, past, present, or even present, yes. I hope I'll still be around when we have others coming on board, but I was taken aback that the head of state, would ask me a question that, because in the past, we were in the studios when the head of state came, and we were given scripts. If there had been, there had been several coups, and it's always the presenter or the station, either the managers that take the brunt of the whole, the issue when things like that happen. You don't know who is coming. You don't know how many jeeps are going to be coming in. You don't know how many, all those heavy equipment that they drive in as they are coming into the studio. You don't know where they are going to shoot the station down. Nobody knows that. It's only the people who have worked during that period that can relay those experiences. Sometimes you're at work in the morning, by the time you come back in the afternoon, the government has changed. And if you haven't got maybe your ID card, you won't be allowed into the station, or somebody can throw you in or into jail. So all this had happened in the past. Nobody has told any of these stories. People like Segun Lushola or Dr. Kolade. Somebody might come and say, so has happened. I was driving my former husband to work in the morning. I dropped him at the station. By the time I reached home, there had been a coup. Murtala had been killed. And they were under siege, the whole station. Just imagine that kind of scenario. Things like that had happened in the past. But Nigerians don't have that sense of history that wants to sit down and say, well, we want to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Of course, we'll pray that it doesn't happen again. And you wake up in the morning and somebody is announcing something else, different from what you have. A colleague of ours had been, pushed into something that he wasn't aware of. Those are kind of situations that have happened in the past. But this one, we were all dressed in ceremonial costume and trying to, I was the only one that was asked to stay in the presidential, the special area that is demarcated for head of states on issues like that. And all of a sudden, the president is following me all about. And I said, this is getting too close for comfort. And I said, what's your name again? I said, my name is Julie Coker. I was trying to play innocent, that I didn't know what was happening. He said, hey, how much did your dress cost? Can I have, sorry, sir. I don't think I'm the proper person to answer that question, sir. Yeah, you don't have answer. It's a bit unprofessional. I mean, not in the profession per se that we mean, but I wasn't prepared for that kind of thing. So I must have given a rude answer to that. And then, before I knew it, Adel Lanwa, who was then the head of Navy, came to me and said, you have been very rude to the president. The president said, he asked you a question and you couldn't answer. I said, good morning, Mr. President, sir. Because when we introduce them on TV, that's how we introduce them. We're now going to be addressed by a new head of state, Mr. So, sir. And I said, you should go and ask the president of Festac. I'm sure he has a record of what the question is asking me can be answered, better answered by the president of Festac. If he finds that unbearable or rude, then either the other one is not doing his work well or I'm not doing my work well and I don't belong here. But I carried on regardless. Shortly after that, another top army officer, Joseph Daruba, that one was the tallest man next to Ufwe Bonye or the one from Mali. And he said, Julie, I know you can be rude at times. I said, not on this occasion. This is a wonderful occasion for the whole nation. And I'm trying to be my best behavior. And the president said, "I'm being very rude to him." He said, "I know you, maybe you can say things." And I said, "No, I never." He asked how much the dress cost. And I don't think I have an answer, which may contradict what will be on record if you really examine it thoroughly. I was getting very nervous at the time. So I dropped everything and disappeared from the scene, and I never went back again. But the thing reverberated right down to all the committees and members. My late auntie, what's her name? Kentebe, which was a lady, commodore of the Navy. She said, "Julie, I think she heard that she was going to be sacked that day because the naval officer sent to her and said, 'You are the one that did this.'" And I said, "Can never, God forbid, can never reach me because I'm not in the forces. I'm doing my own job here as a professional broadcaster." Well, I think it has reached a stage now where whatever you say might be taken against you because there are so many people going to court now and people sent to jail, but things were not as bad as they are now because some of the gory stories we hear and people being, penalized and sent to jail, I think it has reached an astronomical level that it's something that's actually, maybe it was there and people did not want to open the canker worms and let us see what is really happening. In my own case, it was a deliberate attempt on the part of an aunt of mine who felt that there's no child that should continue going to school at a certain age. And they were trying to arrange for me to get married to somebody. And it's a tradition of our people, in Delta, to find out whether the girl is still a virgin. Then they go and look for one old man. It's not this, the one that is happening is child abuse now. I don't know what to call that one. There are other cases too of children being sold into, prostitution and apply a trade that by some madams, which is not really acceptable. But there are other areas. Maybe some parents cannot pay for their children's school fees, so they send them, into child labor or whatever. I think every child should be given a chance to have, proper education. If Awolowo can start free and fair education to children, whether all genders, boys and girls, see what the results that have come out of that. But in some other parts of Nigeria, they believe that that it's not acceptable in their religion, and so they still keep the children down and send them into early marriage. And a lot of people have dealt, people like Dr. Simi Johnson, they were in the forefront of that vanguard to liberate the children who have been kept, into Porda at age 13. And when they have children, they are not able, either they die, premature deaths from, being too early to go into pregnancies and have the children properly and things like that. Different stages. It's a very serious issue that actually I think has been well looked into, not by the United Nations or by, but Nigerian government itself should look at it more, more serious terms and try to find how to deal with it. But that's something that happened in some homes, which is now coming out now, which in the past, members of the family would not allow maybe a woman that is a victim. The child is a victim, but there are other, things that sort of trigger down the line, like a wife, for instance, who is watching her husband, trying to abuse children that are under their care. And the children definitely cannot, rise to the level that a child who's been abused at an early stage cannot continue with her education. So I have been involved in issues like that because I was affected as a 13-year-old when an aunt of mine felt that I should stop going to school. But I was rescued by another aunt. So I was lucky at the time. Not many people have been able to, get through all those kind of trauma. I was lucky that just at the time, the man was busy talking to some other people, and it's like somebody being kidnapped and another person coming to your rescue. So I was lucky at my own, to escape that unscathed and get on with my life. If I hadn't gone through, maybe I would have been having 13 children. It's good to have children so that the population will multiply. But then you have to make sure that the children are able to, get on with their education. And when you educate that child, he's able to look after other children. I've raised so many children in the process. I was able to earn enough money to take care of members of my family. And that is what everybody should sort of, try and rise up to that challenge. Our chief, Folami Koka, was the Babeto of Lagos. So, and I used to accompany him to the palace of Yekon. And someone then said, well, Yeto, why don't you let... He wanted his wife to be the Yeto, but she rejected it. She said she didn't want to because, she thought they were going to perform some fetish. This is really fetish. My brother now turned to me and said, Julie, do you want the title? I said, no, it's not for me to say, because I wasn't terribly keen. But he said he was going to carry out all the preparations. And I said, well, if you're going to do that, why not? And the late Oba Adeyinka graciously offered me the title. I accepted and went through the ceremony. So I've been a Yeto of Lagos now for getting on 40-something years. We only have one majesty in England. And that is one of the oldest institutions in the world. Some other countries are getting rid of their heads of their traditional rulers. France doesn't have one, for instance. There are some countries in Europe, I think in Finland, that still have, kings and queens and all that. But Nigeria, every little village, every doorstep has one title. This is the palace of the so. It wasn't like that in our own time. We had only one Oba in Lagos. Now you have so many. You have several Obas. This one claiming this and that. Itiosa, whatever. After a while, there's going to be a clash. Maybe not in our own time. So if they're playing traditional roles, somebody will lay claim to some title that belongs to somebody else and another one. There's no end to it. So let them stay the way they are now. If they want to multiply, that has nothing to do with me because we don't have any say in that. It's not, because you can say now that this station is trying to sell this idea to be propagating an idea that should not be. I don't think anyone should play any constitutional role. If each one has its own, in the states at the state level, they take it, I think it's rotated. After a while, one steps down, another one takes over at that level. If they want to go and attend the meeting at the House of Assembly, that's up to them. But at the federal level, I think No. No. I don't approve of it at all. Because then you have some woman coming on and saying that he's the one that is entitled to the title. It's not. I don't know whether any African country actually accepted that sort of thing. So Nigeria shouldn't start. You know, Nigeria at certain points in any of these things. Once Nigeria starts, other people will start. And before you know it, the whole thing will skyrocket and another war starts. We have enough problem on our hands as it were now. No, we are lagging behind. It's such a terrible shame that we only have about 4 women in the Senate. It's ridiculous. We seem to be dancing backwards. In that regard, I think that is falling short. Totally. There was a time when there were more. There doesn't have to be more women in the Senate. I think there should be maybe 50%. Not even 30-something affirmative, whatever that they went to Beijing to talk about. There should be more. There should be more women participating in politics. I don't know whether it's because. No. I don't want. I just believe that we should have more women in politics. Because women are more sensible. Women are glamorous, they come out looking beautiful, but their contribution to national issues, I think, more. Look at a man who went to beat up somebody in the house, and he says he's a hero. Hero of where? That kind of man should not be allowed to even come and address the press. Maybe the press find it funny, humorous to feature somebody like that. There's no woman that will come on TV and speak like that. If you examine every single one of the men, they all have different issues. Some of them have issues about wives and men and things that they have been doing, or they are corrupt and they have been taking money, dipping their hands into different coffers. No woman would do that. I think women are more serious-minded, and they address issues the way they should be addressed. And they will take more care of issues that affect the nation, girl-child issues, health issues. The men don't even care about health issues. They don't even want to know what's happening. The men even wear big gag